Merlin 3D, how to build your own PSIRT three-dimensional animated report development process. Hey everybody, my name is John Capobianco. People like the little intro, so I'm going to keep doing them. Anyway, right now I'm going to show you, honestly, don't be intimidated by this. It's 3D and it's Python and it's JavaScript and object notation and just take a deep breath. I'm going to show you. It's so easy. It is so easy. And I'm going to show you step by step how we're going to build this 3D world together. All right, so I'm not going to hide. I'm going to hide my face. I'm just going to go to a full screen today. So this is the 3D world of Blender, and I need to bring in the code, right? The data from the REST API. So I do this in two steps. First, I have a Python file here, and you'll see how simple this is. I need date and time because I'd like a timestamp. I need JavaScript object notation because that's the file type I'm dealing with. And I'm using Jinja2 to run the original JavaScript object notation through what's called a template that then we can create what I like to call Blender-friendly JavaScript object notation. And we can do this with anything. That's the luxury of JavaScript object notation. Comes in one way, put it through a Jinja template, output it in the way we need it, and then ingest it into the Blender world. So I'm just setting up my template directory, setting up an environment variable that loads the template directory so that I have a nice convenient environment variable. I'm loading up my sample PSIRT data, and let's show you as an anchor point what that looks like. So this is a PSIRT report, and I've done this automatically, yes, but I'm going to keep this file in the repository so you have one to work with, and that's what we're loading in here. If I need to go get one automatically, that's another step of code, but because of the keys that are required for authentication, I've decided to make this a static file, but we'll revisit that later in the videos. So I like to print it to the screen to make sure that it's printed and loaded. And then I'm setting up, today and my date time in the string format that I'd like. So then, here's where the Jinja2 comes in. I'm setting up my template here, and I'm loading my J2 file that we're going to open in a second. And then I'm saying this variable PSIRT Blender equals the templated version's render. And then inside of the brackets, I'm passing it the date and the PSIRT information, right? The raw PSIRT here and the date time from here. Now, why I'm keying into advisories is, I will show you. I'd like to key into this array so that I can make a loop over each of these, and there happens to be 4 vulnerabilities. So now let's open up the Jinja2 template side by side. And again, all of this is included, but I'm showing you how easy it is to build. So here is an advisory, and I literally just say for advisory. That could be for X or for Y or for J. I like to name my variables. So for advisory in PSIRT. Now this PSIRT is this anchored PSIRT from the Python. That's what I'm passing in. So then I simply, I'll come back to the loop, I'll come back to this. But I simply, anything in white is my own text. And I'm partly doing this because I don't want the camel cap version of advisory title. I'd like it to say advisory space title with a colon. I comma separate these, and then I call each individual variable that I want. This is inside of an array, and you'll see the end of the array. Let me show you the closing statement of the array. But we have an outer array here, and then inside we're setting up an array inside of the arrays. Now, why do I need this loop? Why do I care about it? Well, to make it valid JavaScript object notation, and let me just show you here, I have to say if it's the last iteration of the loop, then do a square bracket without a comma, right? Because that's the last one. Else, we'll go ahead and put a comma in because there's going to be another set of arrays, right? So this, in theory, should give us 4 sets of this information. Now, I'm going to leave it like this. There's no harm in leaving it templated like this. It's valid JSON. So then back to the Python, and I'm not going to change that at all. I then just simply, I print it to the screen to make sure it's working visibly, and then I save it to a file called PSIRT.json. Okay, so this is the Python world. I wrap all of this up in a Docker container, and let's run the Docker container. So I'm just going to say docker compose up psirt. And again, it's not calling any APIs. It's not using PyATS at all. It's loading this file, and here's, right, this is what the raw file looks like up here, because I'm printing it from the file. And then here is my really nice array of arrays. Pretty interesting. Now, this is a massive list of affected versions here. And I'm tempted just to drop it and not include it because that's not going to look very nice in the 3D world. Same as affected versions here. There's a lot of them in here. So we'll have to play with it and see what it looks like in 3D. But it looks like that affected versions might have to go. So let's just adjust that very quickly, and we'll just show you the power of this templating. I'm going to go into my template, and it was affected versions that we didn't like, right? Too much. It's too much. So let's just drop it, and we're just going to take this and move it all back to here. And we're going to save it, and we're going to then recompose. Right? Let me clear the screen so everyone can see this. I'm going to say docker compose build no cache because we want a fresh copy psirt. And now let's go ahead and bring it up. Okay, so we did get rid of affected versions, although affected iOS versions, we still have this list here. So there was 2 different affected versions. Yeah, you see, that's just no good. We don't want that in there. Let's do that again. Where is that affected? Okay, I see. There's product names and then I see. So there's 2 places we're going to get rid of that. And it's okay. We're going to go ahead and build and then bring it up. And that looks much better. That's a nice clean data set that we can work with. Okay, so now into the Blender world. And I want to highlight here, if you're not comfortable using the text editor, right, it's handy because we get to hit the play button to run the Python, so you're going to need it. But if you prefer to write your code in VS Code, there's no harm in editing your PSIRT Blender file in here, and then your Blender world will reflect your changes. So what we're doing is we're importing BPY and JSON. The BPY is Blender Python, and we're going to call that later on to affect the materials and colors and things like of that nature once we've gone ahead and placed our objects. So we're going to open that PSIRT JSON file, and let's just print it as PSIRT, the variable, to see that our Blender world is working. So we want to toggle our system console so it comes up, and we're going to hit play, and it failed. Why did this fail? Is my file there? PSIRT JSON Camelot. Oh, maybe my PSIRT file is no longer valid. Why is this red? Oh, we've left an extra comma in here. That looks like what's throwing it off. Is this comma inside of final. So that's a little mistake inside of the template. Where's final? Here. We no longer need that comma. That was my mistake. Not a problem. Easily found. That's the power of VS Code. Let's bring it up again. And a nice clue in VS Code is that this file is now green. Excellent. So now, and this is why I printed in Blender, is to make sure that my Blender is working. We can see that it's error-free. And if I were to toggle this with the system console, we should see the data start to, it's hard to tell because of the, let me save the file, put a, so untitled blend, let's just save this as PSIRT blend, and this should put, there we go, there's our marker. So now if I run this, there's our fresh set of data. Okay, so now we're ready to actually start building and placing objects. I'm going to put a breakpoint into the video, but as you can see, we can take JSON, manipulate it in Jinja2 templating, render it with Python, and now we have an array of arrays. And building on this video, we're going to see why that's important. Stay tuned for many more videos in this series of building the PSIRT three-dimensional animated report. Thank you.